Hey everybody, I am going to try to do a little quick, I'm going to have to wipe my screen off, sorry. It's got pencil mark on it. Sorry about that. Okay, so I'm going to just go real quick, go live and show you how I'm working on the grass for this piece 17 Summer. Trying to adjust my lighting. It's super washed out from the lights, but I need the light to draw, but it looks kind of faded. I can't tell if it's my pencil shavings on my actual phone. I can't tell it, or if it's the washed out lights. So let me try a couple things to adjust the lighting. Sorry, I don't really know any other way to do this except for doing it live. So it looks kind of washed out right now. I'm going to wipe the screen off. I know, that's weird. Okay, that helps, definitely helps to make it a little bit less foggy looking, cloudy looking, I guess. So I wanted to show and demonstrate how I am actually creating all this grass. There's a lot of grass to create, and it is very, it looks very crazy and tedious, like how would you do this? And so I've kind of started demonstrating already on this part that's unfinished of how simple of a process it is, how easy it actually is. It's not near as tedious or crazy as you think. So what I'm doing is I'm using quite a few shades of green. I've got a lot of green, and I always have a glassine paper, a piece of glassine paper. This is just kind of a torn up piece. I don't have a nice neat piece, but this is a glassine, GLASSINE paper that you can get from Amazon on rolls. I buy it. It's museum quality. It protects your paper from your oils in your hands. It protects your paper from pencils or that you don't want to be on there or whatever. So make sure and have that under your hand when you're working. And what I do with the grass, I really just start, I'm not really looking, I'm looking at a reference to the left over here, but I'm not really copying it identically or exactly. In fact, my grass had a little bit more brown in it than I wanted, so I'm going to actually be making this piece have more green grass. So what I'm doing is I just start with like emerald green, and I start looking kind of in the general area, the shapes of some of the, oops, that's the wrong color. I don't want to use emerald green. I take that back. I'm going to use the leaf green right now. Doesn't really matter, you can mix them up, but the emerald green has a little bit too much blue in it for my liking. So I'm going to use the leaf green, and I'm just going to put like a little blade. I'm mixing it up, so I'll have some of the leaf green in on top of the other blades, so it's kind of a mixture of all these greens, because I don't want the grass to just look one color. There's going to be some different shades of green, and you can see that I've pulled them all out. And the most common color you'll see is the green olive, permanent green olive, and that's going to add some dark shades in the grass as well. And you're just going to like I start making the blades, so like individual blades, and it looks like, okay, how's this going to look realistic? But I'm starting with the blades, so I see that there's a blade there. There's some blades that kind of cross it. So I'm just laying them in really roughly. It's not even like, you know, it's not a science. It's not a perfect blade of grass. The nice thing about grass is it's extremely forgiving, so nobody like notices when a blade of grass is out of place. There's also these, like some grass in here that is very, I'm going to sharpen my pencil. There's some brown grass. It's kind of almost like a yellowish brown. And so when I get to one of those that I want to make sure include, I just kind of make a little outline so I can remember where I want that brown grass. So like up here, I want to have a couple of skinny, long brown ones like this. And I know to kind of make some dead grass in here. And then around it, I'm going to have some green coming out, some blades. And I'm just going to kind of, you know, lay them in. And it looks like this is never going to be a photorealistic piece, because you're just like all these little blades that you're just like placing in places. I'm not even looking, you know, I don't have to look that closely at the reference, which makes this piece a little bit more fun as far, well, not fun, but less tedious. I enjoy looking at my reference and trying to make photorealism as well. But it's just, I can talk while I'm doing it. It's not requiring me to like look really closely, you know, exactly, and making sure that my shapes and my colors and my values are exact yet. All I have to do is just kind of place some of these little features of these little blades. It's still kind of hard to talk. That's why I say words that don't make sense and when I'm talking and drawing. So once I get a few of those out like that, and it starts to look really but I get a little whole area going, and it's kind of an underleaf. There's going to be more layers on top, so I don't really care that it's not perfect. But I get an idea of where I want the blades to go, which direction. And I do look at the reference enough to know, okay, well, you know, they all kind of crisscrossy. They're laying a certain direction, and so I don't get too many that are accidentally going the wrong way, or all of them, so that my brain doesn't start making them all go the same direction. I am intentionally looking over every now and then and finding a pattern somewhere where I see blades of grass crossing, so that I can copy that when I get to that area. And I see that there's a certain kind, like when you find a dead grass, there's usually like, they're skinny and there's they look a certain way. So that's why I'm outlining them, so I remember to make them kind of a yellow brown. I won't make them quite as dead as they are in my reference photo, because this is not really summer, but I guess in the summertime my grass kind of dies too. But we haven't worked on the grass a lot yet, so it's not as green as it will be later in the summer. So that's why I'm kind of taking out intentionally some of those dead pieces. Okay, so once you get this, and you've got like some shades of green in there, then I'm going to come along behind it, and I'm going to use the earth green. It's kind of a lighter green, and I'm just going to kind of fill in some of these areas in between the dead grasses, but not so dark, just lightly, so I can see, I can have something under my black. I don't like to put my black down just by itself. It looks just too black. It looks too flat. So I'm going to go back in on the green area. I'm trying to leave some of these little outlined areas for dead grass, because I want the depth and the color from the dead grass to be left in there. So I'm just kind of sketching in around it where I know the black is going to go, and filling that in. And I can still bring in other shades of green as well as I go along, but then that's the second step. And then the final step, not really final, but the last step that starts to make it look more realistic, is taking my black pencil. I thought I had my black ready to go, but I don't. Sorry. Okay, so I have my black pencil. It is here. I should have like 50 black pencils, because I use so much black in the background. And I don't know, I must have moved it. Okay, I'll get a little short black pencil. They get abandoned. I have an entire container of little black pencils that are like this size and smaller. And I just throw them in there, and I will use them, but it's like, I like long pencils, so I end up looking for the long one. Okay, so I kind of see some areas I need to touch up, which will also be part of the progress of going through the entire piece and touching up. So what I'm going to do is, now I'm looking at an area near the thumb area that's not done, and I can see that I need to bring in some black, and I'm just going to kind of go on top and around and define some of the leaves, and right up to the leaves. And it's more solid, it starts out more solid, and hopefully you can see what I'm doing. It starts out with some kind of little solid areas here, real solid black, different directions. There are a lot of little triangles to the shapes of these. I'll just kind of fill them in with little triangles around the leaves in that lime green area that I did. Now you're left with some pretty bright colored leaves, and they wouldn't just all be solid. So I noticed that they're not just, when I say solid, they're not like solid green. They have variations of green. So then I'll just kind of pull in a few variations of green, maybe some lighter green in a couple of those blades. And then I'll even use some of the black to do some of the shading and just start on one edge of the blade and just kind of darken it like that. And kind of darken it around the outside edges of the black. As it was kind of curving into the grass below, it gets kind of dark. And just kind of add some textures in there. Okay, so then I just keep going into this area. So I've already made and defined where I want my blades. So I can kind of leave a little light yellows. And then there's one of those outlines here. Hopefully you can see what I'm doing. But there's one of these little outlined areas, so I leave it white for now. I don't want to color over it. And then I'm going to just fill in some more black. Fill in some black here. Making sure when I fill in the black that I leave some of those little points of the blade. So what I mean by that is the ends of the blade right here. If you can see that. Those are pointy, and I want to keep them like that. I don't want to lose that pointiness of those blades of grass. Then I kind of go back in with the greens and fill in different areas. And then in a minute, I'll do some of the dead grass. And then you can fill in over on top of it again like that. Just add some of the texture to those various shades. Use some of the olive green to build some undervalue tones. And what's interesting about this process is when you're doing it up close, you'll start feeling like this doesn't even look like grass. And it's when you step back at the whole picture, it's like, wow, it just starts popping out and looking like grass. So then I'm kind of going up here and defining the black in between these blades. Rotating my pencil to keep the sharp edge. I'm going to kind of fill that in. And as you start to fill in these, you can kind of shape it also to give it look like little twigs. So you can kind of change the shape of things if you want with the black. I'm going to get it, I don't want to get out of the area where I've actually put green behind the black. Because it does make a difference. It's very light, but it does make a difference. Rather than just putting black on the white paper, it also helps that if you miss a couple of areas with black, you don't end up with white paper showing through. So by putting this green down in between like this, it helps to prevent that. So that way, if there is any place where you didn't get a really good coverage with your black in between the grass blades, you won't have any white paper showing through. And so then you can kind of go back in and add a little bit of texture and detail to those. And it goes pretty fast. And if you're listening to music and you're just kind of taking these 2 or 3 or 4 colors of green and black and just going along like that, you can cover a large area pretty quickly. And you can always go back in with a Tombow Mono Zero eraser and take out some if you feel like you need a little bit lighter area or brighter area. And then the black can go back in and fill in little areas. And the only thing I would say is you can get so obsessed with it that it's hard to call it finished. So you can be working on this grass area and then, come back to your piece later and go, oh, I need to work on this grass here. And you can sit here and you can just go crazy with this, filling in all these little tiny lines and feeling like you need to do more and add more blades. So that can kind of get to where, if you're not careful, if you're OCD like me, like I could work this area right here that's finished over and over again until I'm happy, and still might need to do more. And I'll probably, now one thing I will do is as I move outwards, when it's up against her body, there is more black because the depth in the grass around her from her shadow of her body. So I'm probably having a little bit darker overall look for the grass all up next to her body. And as I move outward in my reference photo, I notice that it gets a little greener, a little less dark, but not totally, like not so obvious that it's like a light shining on that area. And then I'm going to go back in here in a minute and just demonstrate the little dead grass. But I want to put a couple dark olive colored blades in here. And I'll just keep extending my area until I'm happy with it. Some of the blades are pointy, some of the blades are long like this. And I notice some of them are like this, where they're kind of fat and streaky with different colors. So I'll pull in some of the different lime green, lighter greens, leaf green. And then some of them are more real tiny. They're like a little blade like that. And then every now and then you'll see a real fat, lighter colored one. So I'll continue to build those colors and then going back around it really closely with the black, just to shape them, to give it more detail, more depth. There's a couple of dead pieces there by her hand. And if you see that you've got too much black in an area and you want to have a little more green, just leave a couple little holes and fill it in. And then you can kind of go in here. And I want that to be a dead one. A little dead piece of grass there. So the dead grass, I'm not making it as dead as I could. Need more green in there. I'm not making it quite as dead as I could make it look. But I am going to have some dead strands. And I'll show you how to do those. So what I'm doing with those is I'm using a combination of ivory and cream. So I'm taking the ivory first, and I'm just going right in on top of them. They don't really require very much. You can do this before or after you put in the black. They just require a little bit of ivory on them. It's when you fill them in, the green around them, they're going to stick out like dead pieces of grass. But not as dead as, like I said, the picture has like more brown and less yellowy and less ivory. And I kind of don't want that look. So I'm filling it in with more of the brighter colored dead grass. And it's not super obvious. It's not going to be like in your face dead. It's just going to cause some different values and texture inside that grass. And if you see you've missed something, this is the part that, it's hard to ever call it finished because you keep going back over and adding depth, which will also darken the piece, which is nice. Give it a little darker look. And then you have to shade some of those blades. You don't want the blades all coming out like totally green from the tip all the way, because when they start coming out from the underneath side, they're going to be darker green. And I know that from looking at my reference photo. I can see that they start out darker at the base, and then they go up to the lighter color of green as they get closer to the sun. And some of them have a little, like a dark line through them, but not all of them. Like some of them have a dark side to the blade. So if I'm going to make a dark side blade here, let's go over here in a new place. I'm going to make a blade come out like this, kind of a light colored one. And then I'm going to give it a dark side. Probably put some more of this color in it. And you can play around with it. Most importantly is I'm trying to make sure that I have consistent with the colors. So all those colors, if I have a bright pop, you got to make sure and bring that pop into the other blades, because the whole lawn has to look uniform. It's the same kind of grass, so I have to make it look uniform. So then I'm going back with the black, shaping them, adding some texture in there. So it looks really tedious and like it's going to take a long time, but it's a lot faster when you start adding in the black and doing the shape, and it's actually kind of fun. It gives you if you want something to do that's kind of monotonous. You're not having to think about, like when you're drawing faces, or when I'm drawing faces at least, and I'm getting the nose just right, or getting the skin tones just right. All of that can be very, very tedious and very kind of stressful, because you got to make sure, and you make a wrong, you're worried you're going to make a wrong mark, or you're going to get your proportions wrong, or it can be just your brain is in deep thought. You're really thinking about what you're doing. And especially if you're new at drawing and you haven't done a lot of faces, you're going to be constantly thinking about, like, what shape am I making, and am I doing this right? But once you get better at it and you're just drawing what you see, pretty soon it's kind of all mind numbing, because you're just kind of filling in areas of color. So it looks like it goes really slowly, but you can see that over a couple of hours of doing this, you can see how quickly it adds up. I'll put a little bit of green back there. I just want some kind of green under the black. So I get to an area and I move so fast that I'm like, ooh, I forgot to put green under here. But I do like to have some of the green under my blacks. And then just keep going. It's just over and over these little areas. And you can pretty much see pretty quickly that it starts to form grass. And while it might not look super green at that moment, it's going to be very green whenever it's going to look very much like grass when it's all done and you've stepped back. So I'm going to step back from it and show you what it looks like from a distance, so you can get an idea. Oh, that's tipping over my chair. So you can see that it's very green. And it starts to look like grass. So anyway, that's pretty much how I do it. It's pretty simple. It's not as difficult as you might think. And this piece is going to be turned on opposite. So I've been taking photos of it flipped. I did finish the other one. It's the same girl, but she looks different with every one of her modeling poses. She's got her head lifted up a little bit now and looking up, and it's actually going to be flipped. I can't really flip it here to show you, but if you look at my Facebook page, this one's going to be flipped. I have it drawing it on my table like this because it's easier. So whenever I do a photo update, I will show you how it looks on the computer on Facebook. You'll see the different orientation. The other one is finished. That one is called 17 Spring, and I finished it under the 30 days. I finished it in like 25 days. And here, since I'm live, I'll just walk over there and show you it. We'll just go right over here in my other art room. I'll turn the light on, and you can see it finished. So it's on this table, and I currently have it with, let me move the light. I currently have it with my covered, because it needs to be covered to keep the sunlight off of it, protecting it. It's going to be framed very soon. Let me get a light. It's very big. It's 26 inches by 22, and that's the same size as the next piece that I'm doing. Let me turn the light on. Oh, that's not plugged in. Okay, bear with me. I am making you look at stuff while I'm plugging in my light. Hopefully I'm holding my camera on something. Okay, there we go. Now you can see it with a light. And it's big. It's the size of my drafting table. Pretty large. This is not the brightest room. This room is pretty dark, but you can see how big it is. This is how big the other one is going to be, but it will be flipped vertically. So there she is, all done. Depending on how the light hits it. This is my daughter Evie. She has posed for this piece. I have drawn her every year since she was 14. And they are usually just named 14, 15, 16. This one is 17, and I took the flowers right out here on this porch, and I had potted flowers, and I laid them all on the porch, and she laid down in the flowers, and I took the picture, and then I moved the pots and I planted all the flowers. So she modeled for this one. The other piece, I took a picture of her right out there in that green grass, and she's holding flowers in her hands, and she's got a beautiful blouse on, and it's going to be a bigger piece. So this is my painting room, and I have a painting I'm working on behind me that I'm not going to share right now. Hopefully I didn't already flash it. And then I have, and the other one, the big oil painting I'm working on, is also her. She's not a supermodel, but she did have a modeling contract through First Models Houston, but they never called her because she's too short. She's only 5'3", and so they don't think that's tall enough for a model. So they have never actually called her. She finally let her contract expire. She would love to model, so I'm making her my model. I told her I'd make her famous with all of her paintings. So anyway, this is Evie in her 17th spring. I have a plan for, she could be a photo model, but just nobody ever called her. Her picture was on the website for a year for First Models Houston, and no one ever called her for a job. So she just got busy with school and friends, and she just said, never mind. She's 17, so this is 17, her 17th year of life. She's turning 17 very shortly, and that's why I named this series 17. So she had 17 spring, this is 17 summer, and then I'm going to have 17 autumn. I'm actually going to have 17 vacation, and I'm not going to tell you what that one's going to be, but it's going to be cool. I'm going to do a 17 autumn and then a 17 winter. And so I keep taking pictures of her and finding themes that I want to do, and it'll be flipped. You can see what the real grass looks like. It's much more brown in the reference photo and a little bit different color green. So I changed the green up, and I'm making it less brown. And now this piece will be flipped this way, so you'll be seeing her at a different angle. So she's enjoying it. She loves having her picture drawn. This is a picture I'm working on of her and her dad and her sister when they were little. I have it covered. I usually cover my pieces with glassine when they're not being used. Except for little pieces that are already finished on the wall that I need to frame. That's my granddaughter Olivia. But usually when I have work in progresses like this, I cover them up, because if you don't, all the light in the room will just help fade the pencils faster, since they're not covered with acrylic or any kind of glass that will protect them right now. They're just, they have to be covered. So I have these pieces of glassine paper that I tape to the top of my drafting table, and then when I'm ready to stop working on it for a while, I just pull it over and drop it on top. So I have always sprayed my work, but this is a new day for me. I am not going to be spraying my pieces anymore. The reason why is I'm using very light, fast pencils, very light, fast quality, high light, fast quality pencils, and I'm using the highest UV protectant of glass or acrylic that you can get. It's museum quality, and they also are not in broad daylight. Once they're done, they're framed behind that protective glass, and they're on inside, and they don't have shining bright lights on them, so they're going to last 50 to 100 years. Not going to be a problem. I worry about the chemicals in the sprays. Even though they say they're archival safe, it bothers me the fact that they have not been tested for 50 years. They've never actually tested those sprays. So I don't know for a certain fact that they will help or hurt my pieces, but I know that you have to be very, very careful on these fair skins that I'm drawing. When I draw with very fair skins, especially like the other one too, I'm a little bit worried that sometimes I'll get little droplets, and it kind of messes up the picture. And it's terrifying when you've spent 75 hours on a beautiful drawing, and then you're spraying something and you get little droplets on there that didn't form right, and it's hard to fix. So I've decided to stop spraying my pieces for a while. So I'm going to see what happens, and I don't expect much change because they should last up to 50 years anyway. So I really don't expect much change. But I use the highest quality light fast pencils. I use Polychromos by Faber-Castell, and If I use Luminance or other brands, I always make sure that I use Luminance are all high quality light fast pencils, but whatever brands I use, I make sure and use the light fast ones, so that it over time. And now here's something that happened. I dropped a pencil on the paper, a dark brown pencil, and it made a huge mark. And so I went and tried to erase it and had a difficult time erasing it. So I decided to make sure I could cover it up with the flush tone, and sure enough, I was able to do that. So now I'm not worried about it. And so you're going to start seeing in the updates, there's a little area where it's the pencil from the hair fell, but that will be all covered in, and you won't be able to see it in the end. So I was really happy that I was able to correct that, because if you drop something hard like a dark pencil onto the white paper and it gouges, like slams into it, it's very hard to erase it. Now if you just write on it, the eraser takes it up really well on Stonehenge, but it's not easy to take it up if you poke it into the paper really hard and it's a dark color. But that one was able to remove it with a little bit of the eraser and shading in the different colors. And that is part of her skin because she's wearing a crop top. So those of you who are watching this or who watch it later will get to see that she has a crop top. I didn't tell anyone that, but it's a gorgeous top, one that she probably says she'll never wear again. But I bought it for her so that I could take a picture of her and draw it, because the top is what made me fall in love and think about this composition. I saw this top at a store at Forever 21 and I was just like, I literally want to draw this so bad. And so you can see it has some lemons all over it and it's very blousy and gorgeous. So I can't wait to finish the whole top and finish. I'll probably be working on the top alongside the grass because I get tired of working on the grass, so I will jump to the top. And I'll move around. I'll probably finish the top before the top piece of that grass. I'll probably finish this much of the top and start working on the sleeve over here. She's holding some flowers in her hand, and so I'll get those flowers, and then I'll start working from the top down and bring it down to her belly, which is on the bottom half, and part of her jean shorts. So if you can kind of visualize that, I won't show the whole reference photo, but if you can visualize the crop top, blousy crop top with lemons, and then blue jean shorts and a few flowers in one hand laying on a lot of grass. That's what the whole piece is going to look like, but it won't be laying like this. That's why on Facebook I'm flipping it to show you, because I don't want everybody to get used to the orientation like this, because it looks much better when it's vertical. So it's going to be a portrait, not landscape. So the other piece was landscape intentionally. Actually I was going to do it portrait, and then when everybody started watching me do the update, I decided that people were used to seeing it that way, so I left it. But this piece definitely is going to be flipped, and I think it looks a lot better for the composition. Okay, so that's where I'm at today on 17 Summer. I'm going to be out of town this weekend. I hope you guys all have a really happy Easter weekend or holiday weekend, whatever you're doing. I'm going to be just traveling to my daughter's house, and then I'll be picking this up again on Monday. So thanks a lot for watching, and hopefully I helped you understand how not so difficult the grass really is. Happy Easter. Okay, see you guys later.